So I love, love, love lots of information. And my biggest area of personal growth that's helped me as a professional, I'm a school counselor, and is been learning about the brain, especially when it comes to behavior. Because so many things that I was trained on as an elementary teacher about classroom management, parenting books that I've read, behavior modification, consequences. There's so much information out there. And when I get to add a new layer that just really changes my mindset, my filter that I look at behavior through, I'm so grateful. So my filter's been slowly getting adjusted and changed to where it's a really good combination of brain-based parenting information that explains behavior and gives you good tips for dealing with behavior, as well as just understanding human nature. So just because it's a brain thing doesn't mean we don't have consequences, but also consequences will not fix all behavior if we don't understand what's happening in the brain. So tonight is trying to take those two bits of information and put them together. So I am a school counselor. I work at Jenks East Elementary. I've also been teaching parenting classes for over 20 years through Family and Children's Services and things with Oklahoma Family Network and other things. And then I'm the mother to four beautifully neurodivergent children. And the things that might have worked for my oldest child definitely didn't work for my second, didn't work for my fourth. Every child is unique and different. And I wished that I had known more about the brain and its impact on behavior because I feel like it would have helped me understand my kids even better and had more effective responses for them. So my own journey is now to your benefit as I have tried to figure these things out. So these are my kiddos. All my sons are grown and out of the house, and then my daughter is a freshman in high school. So we're also a blended family. So all sorts of different dynamics. Here's my hope for us tonight. I want you to walk away with a reframe, like a lens shift, a perspective shift, because this was a big deal for me as I've been going through this journey and truly having to change my assumptions about behavior that seemed like they were correct, but they are not correct. They are only a piece of the puzzle. And so I really want you to have some of that. I want you to increase your understanding about what's going on in the brain and the body, like what clues to look for when parents or children are struggling. I want you to really take a minute to evaluate your own personal discipline strategies, whether you're a classroom teacher or a parent or someone who works with parents. What are my strategies when I am trying to change or correct behavior? And then just get some practical ideas about how you can connect to kids, especially when they are escalated or struggling. So that is the hope for today. Now, I always try to cram as much information into an hour. So I recommend you like buckle your seatbelt and get ready because there's a lot. And with all of that, I want you to understand all of this takes time. It takes time for you as the adult to change and grow in your own understanding of yourself and your children or whoever it is that you work with. It takes time for your children to change and adjust and grow and to understand themselves and to learn about how to regulate their behavior. And the reason why I have a picture of a highway on here is in your brain, there are what is called neural pathways, which are basically little roads of nerves that are connected. And, that is how we behave. That's how our thoughts flow along this highway of information. And if you or your child has been doing or thinking a certain way over and over and over again, you've basically built a super highway in your brain of this is what I think about this. So anytime I see this, I'm automatically go here. It's also our nervous system in our brain has a way of reacting to stress or showing emotion and all that. And so that also, when you do certain patterns of behavior over and over and over again, it creates a super highway in the brain that makes it easy for your brain to do that and to react that way. So it's great when it's positive, if I know that I have a super highway built to the calm down parts of my brain and I can really access those systems quickly because I've done that over and over, that's great. For most of us, we don't have that highway yet. We still have the highway to the freak out zone, and we do not have the highway to the calm down zone because we don't even know that there was a highway. So it takes time. It takes time to change our minds, learn, grow, as well as learn new coping skills, learn new ways of retraining the brain and therefore retraining behavior. So just have patience. Nothing I'm going to tell you is going to be an overnight fix, but it definitely is a start of a journey. So the more you repeat stuff, the better. So the paradigm shifts. This is a hard one. We all have incredibly different opinions about why kids or people who are misbehaving do what they do. And it really depends on your background, your own, your home that you grew up in, your own training. But Lori Desautels, she wrote a book called Connections Over Compliance. Excellent book. I've got a link there to her website. She has so many free resources, which you'll get in your email. But the paradigm shift is a child's not giving me a hard time. The child or the student, they're having a hard time. The root of discipline is to teach. Behavior is communication. Even if they're not talking, their behavior is talking. We've got to get curious about what their behavior is trying to tell us. And another big key point she makes is kids do well when they can. Now, I know for me, I was raised classic old school classroom management. Um, and, everything was behavior modification, reward, punishment, super strict rules, all those kinds of things to keep my classroom tight. I was a teacher before I was a mom. Then I became a mom, and oh, that book sounds great. Except why is it not working for my second child, who had different needs than my first child? Um, and I would interpret when my children would misbehave, they're giving me a hard time. Nope, they're having a hard time, which is why it's coming out as behavior that you don't understand. As I've really done these paradigm shifts, it's helped me have a lot more empathy, have a lot more patience, and to be honest, be a lot more effective with the prevention and how I respond. So we're going to dig into these different shifts, but this book, Connections Over Compliance, highly recommend. Another thing she offers is I know I discovered her work through a teacher at our school who teaches psychology at the high school. And she did like a program where she did like a certificate program where she took a certain amount of graduate school credit through Dr. Desautels. She was part of a cohort, which then went through the book and they learned all these much more in-depth things about the principles in the book Connections Over Compliance. And left with a certificate, like extra training, professional development training. So that is something that I would love to do someday. But in the meantime, I have to do my reading and my research. So, because of the power of neuroplasticity, that means the brain's ability to change and adjust and grow. You can, in fact, change your view of the world and rewire your brain to be more objective. You have the power to see things as they are so that you can respond thoughtfully, deliberately, effectively to everything you experience. That's a quote from Elizabeth Thornton. Just because I spent the first 40 plus, well, really more like 48 years of my life operating out of the paradigm that children are giving me a hard time. They're doing this to ruin my day. They're just being a little stinker. Even though I was empathetic, that was 48 years of my life. My brain has neuroplasticity, and I have been able to adjust and change and literally see things differently, which causes me to behave differently, me to respond differently, me to not be so stressed out all the time, even though there's still naughty behavior. So hopefully it'll help you. One of the most meaningful shifts is instead of, oh, they're trying to do this to get my attention, what we call attention seeking behavior. Dr. DeSantos calls it connection seeking behavior. And if you see a child differently, looking through this different lens, you will see a different child. It's been amazing to me now. It's so much more obvious when I approach a situation at school as a school counselor. I'm coming in to help with a child who has behavior problems. And I can tell the people who have a little bit more of Dr. DeSanto's background, and I can tell the people who have a little bit of old school response to behavior. And guess what? Both people love kids. Both people are trying to do the best they can with the information they have. And so it's just so fun for me to be able to recognize that, but even help other people realize this is connection seeking behavior. And it does get your attention. Here's some of my favorites, and I'll include, you'll get this in your email too, links to their websites and resources. But Dr. Barbara Sorrells, I am her biggest fan. She's actually in Tulsa. She does tons of stuff on working with kids in trauma. She's doing a lot of advocacy for early childhood literacy. She has free workshops called Lunch and Learns. She has some online classes that you can pay for and take that I've just sat through some of her video podcasts and learned so much. Dr. Bruce Perry is a big guru about child development and the impact of trauma on development. Lots of great resources. Dr. Dan Siegel has written a bazillion books. One of my favorites is uh, The Whole Brain Child. I had to read that in grad school. He's a great resource, a neuroscientist, a brain scientist who takes all this detailed information and makes it make sense to you and me. And then Dr. Lori Desautels, who wrote that book, Connections Over Compliance. Her website has tons of free handouts. A lot of the graphics tonight come from her handouts that were free to the public. So she's a really great resource. So I always like to say I didn't come up with this stuff. She, other my heroes did. So there's several steps in when we are trying to understand and make connections with our children to help with these challenging behaviors. The first step is you have to identify the state of the brain. I know Oklahoma Family Network has recently, we've offered several workshops like, parent helping the anxious child and, understanding and teaching self-regulation in children. Those are some videos that are either on their website, YouTube channel, or will be on there soon. So there's some overlap in there. But in order to understand behavior, you have to understand what's going on in the brain. So we'll add a few more layers to that information. So first off, we have two parts of our nervous system. There is the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. So our nervous system is just all the nerves in our body that send messages from our brain down to our body to react in whatever way. And depending on what part of our nervous system we are in, it will show up with behavior. So I teach this stuff to third and fourth graders in one of my first one or two guidance lessons. When I go into the classroom, I teach them about the different parts of their nervous system, the freak out zone and the calm down zone, and what you might be feeling in your body and what you can do on purpose to calm down. So the sympathetic nervous system, we are all very familiar with that because it's very obvious. This is not necessarily the freak out zone, but it's the reactive part of our nervous system. And it has a job. It's trying to keep us safe. Our nervous system, our brain is always looking for the next threat. It wants to make sure we're okay. And our sympathetic nervous system helps us react. So if we are in this reactive part of our nervous system, here's what's happening in your body. Your heart starts to beat fast. We need more blood getting out to those arms and legs so I can react if I have to. My breathing becomes fast and shallow. The pupils of my eyes actually expand. They're kind of blown. My gut, my tummy becomes inactive because all the blood's flowing away from my tummy out to my arms and legs in preparation to fight or flight. Even if I don't actually have a physical danger, my brain interprets it as I got to get ready. I got to get ready. Blood rushes to those skeletal muscles to give me the ability to fight or run away. And hormones rush throughout your body, cortisol, adrenaline, and it gives you this jittery feeling, and can make you feel anxious. But those are the chemicals that wake up your system. All right. And it takes a lot of energy if you're constantly in the system. So if you've got a kid who's acting out a lot, who gets escalated super easily, who is very anxious, man, they're exhausted. If you are in that state because you're under so much stress or so anxious or having to respond to a child with this kind of behavior, it's exhausting because it's so hard on your nervous system. It's always got to be ready. Now, when you are in the parasympathetic nervous system, this is your relaxation response. It gives you a chance to calm, rest, think, restore. In this part of your nervous system, you're there when your heart's beating slow and rhythmically. All right. When your breath is full and slow, when the pupils of your eyes start to shrink, your gut becomes active because there's plenty of blood flowing to that part of your body. There's increased blood flow to the gut and to the brain. So guess what? You can think better when you are in your calm down system. Hormones rush in that give you a feeling of a good mood, feeling relaxed. Things like oxytocin and endorphins and serotonin and dopamine, all those things that make you feel good. And this is when you're in this part of your nervous system, it doesn't take a lot of energy. Your body is able to rest, even if you're awake. So, here's a little trick I teach my kids. You know how we always say, take deep breaths. So here's what I tell them, like, okay, guys, this is your body. It's either in your T-Rex brain, in your freak out zone, in your sympathetic nervous system, or you're in the parasympathetic nervous system, the calm down, the chill, everything's okay. Did you notice, guys, that it says breathing is full and slow? So here's what I teach my kids. I said, all right now, if you are upset, your breathing is fast and shallow. What if you just did what we said, which is take those deep breaths? Here's what you're doing. You start taking those deep breaths, full and slow, whether you're doing a box breathing method. I'll send you posters and handouts of all these different types of breathing that you can do. Doesn't matter what type you do, but that involves slow, regular, deep breaths. Your brain goes, oh, it's calm down time. Oh, my breath is full and slow because I chose to do that as a coping skill. Well, guess what? The rest of the nervous system tries to match that. Oh, my heartbeat's going to start to slow down. Oh, now my gut gets more active and blood's flowing to my brain and gut. Oh, those good feeling hormones rush through. So I tell the kids, I'm like, guys, you use your coping skills and do those deep breaths. You literally trick your brain and your body to calm down because you chose to do it. All right. So I try to give kids and teens and myself as much information as I can have about these kinds of things so they understand. Now, Dr. Desautels, we'll get there in a second. The other thing, and we'd mentioned this in a class we had last month, Dr. Bruce Perry is the big guy on trauma, but he has this thing called the neurosequential model of development. So good luck translating that, Alberto. So the neurosequential model of development basically talks about how our brain develops at different ages and stages, but also everything that comes into our brain, into our sensory nervous system, comes through the brainstem. The brainstem is very basic. It is like primitive, all right? And then up in our midbrain, that has coordination and movement, our limbic system, emotional response. And finally, up here in the thinking brain, that's where all the stuff we want, the empathy, the self-control, being able to read and speak fluently and all that. That's all up here. Guess what, guys? You cannot get to the good quality calm down stuff until the brainstem is calmed down. And that is where you having an understanding as a parent or as someone who works with children that I can't be talking to them and having them make good choices if their brainstem is still, like scrambled eggs. A kid from trauma, they already have a disorganized brain system. While they were developing, they didn't get to develop in a calm environment. So I have to do a lot of time teaching, repeating, practicing those skills. And we spent a lot of time in the class that we did in March, the teaching emotional regulation to children that went through a lot more details about how to do that. So you can get some good ideas from that. Plus, I'll send more handouts. Now, Dr. Desautels on her website, she had these great cue cards. These are things that you can use, professionals you work with can use, and you can teach your kids to pay attention to. So she's got these cards that are nervous system cards, and I included a link taking you right to these cards that you can print off. So here's what we see on the outside. It's almost like an iceberg. All right. So if the child is in, or we personally are in the fight part of our nervous system, here's what we're going to see as behavior: yelling, criticizing, blaming, maybe hitting, throwing, aggression, demanding, reactive. They're literally in the fight part of their nervous system. Here is what's going where we can't see. This is what we notice. This is where we say, oh, they're giving me a hard time. Oh, they're just trying to get my attention because we're seeing this behavior. Underneath in the nervous system, these are possible feelings they're experiencing: fear, being anxious, pressured, feeling frightened, feeling unlovable, feeling stuck. and possible actual sensations in their body. Might be feeling teary, like they are about to cry, pounding heart, like a burning feeling, maybe in their gut or their esophagus. They feel tight, they feel tense. Some kids describe it as electric, hot. Literally, your body temperature feels hot. Everything feels fast and sharp and knotted. So we see this. In order to understand what we're seeing, we have to understand what's going on with the feelings in the nervous system. All right. So, in moments of calm, when I'm teaching kids who are in the fight state a lot, hey, this is what I'm seeing. Here, what's the feeling behind it? Here's what you might be feeling in your body. The more they become more aware of this, the more they can catch themselves to get to a calm down place before explosion. So that's the fight part of the brain. What about the flight where we're like, run away? Here's what we see in behavior: fidgeting, avoiding, unfocused, procrastinating, running, eloping. Like I have kids run out of classrooms and things like that, or you might have a kid that just runs off from you. Disengage is kind of like the shut down. We see that. And we might say things like, oh, they're being lazy. Oh, they just don't want to work hard. Oh, yeah, there they go, avoiding everything again. And this can be really frustrating because that's the behavior we see. But here's the feelings that are kind of creating that behavior. They might feel restless, preoccupied. They might feel like they're overdoing, like they have too much to do or overstimulated. I had a girl at lunch today who recently had her tonsils taken out. So she was already in a lot of pain. So her sensory system was already edgy. And then she goes to the cafeteria and it was just too much. On a regular day when she's not in pain, she can handle the volume of the cafeteria. But on a day when her throat hurts and like she's feeling this chronic level of pain from her tonsils being out, now the noise is just too much. It was overstimulating. So she made the choice to go eat in the office where it was nice and quiet. And it was her choice, not she wasn't in trouble. They might feel pulled in too many directions, scared or anxious, which would prompt these behaviors. What sensations they might be feeling in their body: teary, like a buzzing, a prickly, a dizzy feeling, kind of twitchy, scattered, knotted, fluttery, queasy, breathless. All these things under the surface look like this for behaviors. All right. When your child is in the collapsed, completely shut down part of their nervous system, they are done. All right. What we might see is they might be absent. That could be where absenteeism, or refusing to go out and see their friends. They might hide. They might hide in their room or, just completely withdraw, zoning out. They look like they're spaced out. And sometimes it's just their system saying, I'm done. Isolating, scrolling, like they just go onto their phone or tablet, daydreaming, where they'd rather think about anything else except what's in front of them, not completing work, tired, exhausted, disconnected. These are the behaviors we see. And here's the possible feelings. They feel lonely, terrified, despair, hopeless. Like, why? Nothing's going to change. Exhausted, judged, overwhelmed, abandoned, isolated. And possible sensations in their body might feel that teary, need to cry, knotted, queasy, numb, void, flat, dull, hollow, empty, heavy. That is if they're in the totally shut down, collapsed part of their nervous system. And there's some positive ones too. When they're feeling steady and grounded in their nervous system, we get all the behaviors we love. We see focused, friendly, collaborative, meaning they can interact with other people, cooperate with others, asking for help when they need it. Kindness, the ability to pause and take a minute to stop and think, reflective, thinking about stuff. We see the creative side when their nervous system is in that steady, grounded state. They might have feelings of feeling peaceful and curious and hopeful and safe and connected and engaged. And possible sensations in their body. Some people have said they feel fluffy, open, airy, bubbly, smooth, light, radiating, loose, sparkly. And these are the behaviors that we want to see all the time. However, if their nervous system is not in a steady, grounded state, they can't do these things. It's not that about won't do them or they're just being a pain. Oh, they're just doing this on purpose to ruin my day. If they are not in the steady, grounded part of their nervous system, they can't do these things that we want. So here's what we want: stop it now and we want them to be able to do these beautiful behaviors. What we need to be doing is, where are they at in their nervous system? How can I do things that get them to a steady, grounded state in their nervous system? Then I'm going to get the behavior I want. You have to understand what's going on in the nervous system, the parasympathetic, the sympathetic. And the only clues we have, because we don't have eyeglasses that are like a functional MRI machine taking real world images of what the brain's doing, we just have behavior. We're like detectives. So that's why I love these cards so much, and you'll get copies of them, is start to look at behaviors in a different way. The behavior is communication about the nervous system. So start looking. Are there certain times of day where you see more of these behaviors that we don't like? Okay, what might be causing that? Do they have such a super highway created to the freak out zone that we haven't, in moments when they're not triggered, we've never really taught them coping skills, and we haven't worked it into our day for them to do over and over and over again so that their brain and their nervous system actually knows what feeling steady and grounded feels like. We can't just do the calm down skills in a moment of crisis. We have to do them as a regular part of our day so that the brain is familiar with feeling this way. Now, if you or your child has had a lot of trauma, sometimes it's really hard to be in this state because trauma, your brain never forgets. There's some amazing books out there. Your body keeps the score and all sorts of stuff about trauma, to where you've been through tough stuff. So your brain has actual experience of tough stuff. So it's much more easily triggered. That is where sometimes you or your child or both of you might need some help in therapy. And there are some more brain-based therapy types. Any therapy, I think, can be really helpful, but there are some things like neurofeedback, and there are some things like EMDR and brain spotting and other vagus nerve kind of stuff that literally is very nervous system specific, that could be helpful for you if you've had trauma, because then it gets your brain reset, which then allows you to do some of these things. So sometimes, you might need a little extra help. Okay. Since it's already after 7, I won't show that video. But one thing I love about that video, and I highly recommend that you watch it, is it really talks about, states of the brain, your nervous system, what that might look like. So if you notice your child is in one of those survival states, fight, flight, or shutdown, if they're in survival brain, here are some adult behaviors that we need. Number one, stop talking. Limit your words. Like, don't go into these big, long explanations or expect them to be able to verbally process what's going on. Share your calm presence. It's called co-regulation. I'm going to not use a lot of words, and I'm going to do everything in my power to project a calm nervous system, because I've had practice with this as a school counselor where I constantly get called for all these things. And done a lot of reading and had some time for practice. It's easier for me to model this and then for some people who haven't done that. But I had to learn this. This wasn't natural for me. I was much more naturally, I'm going to be a fair, but I want to control this situation. We're stopping this behavior. I did a more of an old school classroom management approach. I was still kind. I didn't yell, but I talked too much. And I almost sometimes felt like I used intimidation. You better stop that or this is going to happen, that kind of communication in an attempt to control behavior, versus I didn't even know that my a really important focus was for me to use less words, have that calm body language to help them regulate. It's called co-regulation. So I'm convinced, a quote again by Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, I'm convinced that when we help our children find healthy ways of dealing with their big feelings, ways that don't hurt them or anyone else, we're helping the world make our world a better, safer place. And that's so true. A lot of times they don't even know what to do. All right, let me double check. I've got a question here. If a child has atopic dermatitis, how does it affect the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, and how does the body regulate to maintain that connection? So, atopic dermatitis, I had a child with eczema, which was, dermatitis that was affecting the skin and just those itchy sensations and stuff like that. I don't know the details in response to sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. I do know that, especially at night, if my children were agitated and I didn't have their eczema well controlled, it could just kind of like, I call it like this layer of lava boiling under the surface. They're a little bit more irritable. Now, deep down connections to the nervous system, that I'm not sure of, but I actually think that'd be a really good question to ask the doctor that helps you, your dermatologist and things like that, because they have a better understanding of specific illnesses, and how that impacts your nervous system. Because I do know, that feelings of itching and those kinds of things can be really, really difficult. Because again, it's like you're already irritated, so your threshold for one more thing is a lot. So I know for my children, I definitely had to keep that under control, but then all the more reason to teach them um, coping skills and calm down things. Because I do know that in a lot of um, chronic illness and things like that, even pain management, meditation is a very powerful tool because it accesses different parts of your brain. It releases endorphins, which is our body's natural painkillers, but our body isn't going to be using those if we don't spend time meditating. So again, meditation does not cure atopic dermatitis, but meditation can help bring that nervous system into a calm down place to where it can better manage an already when it's already being irritated. The sympathetic nervous system is being irritated with this chronic illness or condition or pain. Now, but it doesn't cure it. So all the more reason to definitely do some of those extra things. It's hard for a kid though, and I know this is a challenge as a parent because, do they want to do what we tell them to do? Nope, they don't even want to brush their teeth. So, but all the more reason to build some of those things into your day. And one thing I will send out is a family mindfulness schedule, but that could be a really good AI prompt as well. Like that exact thing that you sent, put that into an AI prompt and see what information comes up with, and then continue that prompt to be what are recommendations for helping with this that directly involve the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems. And in the meantime, I'm going to look into that too, because if I find anything, I'll include that in the email that I send to Aaron. Um, but yes, I do know that very specific, very focused activities that train that parasympathetic calm down nervous system could be helpful with some of those chronic conditions. And sometimes you have to model that. There's simple things like even like in a family mindfulness schedule. Mindfulness is just making your brain focus on the here and now, not what might happen or what happened yesterday or what potentially could happen, just right here, right now in this moment. It's like training my brain to focus on one thing. One simple thing they have in there is focus on your chewing. So while you're eating breakfast, have your kids focus and count how many times they chew their food. Well, when my brain is focusing on my teeth chewing my food, it's not as focused on my itching skin or something like that. So there's like these little rituals which seem kind of silly, but they're literally training the brain to access different parts of the brain. This idea of co-regulation, which is where a calm adult is helping a dysregulated person regulate, it's creating that space between two people that's what's called felt safety. So, like, I feel safe around them. I could be in the middle of a tornado, and which is not safe. And if I have someone I can co-regulate with, if they are calm, it can bring me to a place of calm, even if I'm not physically safe at the moment. It can what's called felt safety. It's that space where I'm emotionally available, it's consistent, and even though they can't be regulated, I can hold that space for them. I can create that safe, calm space for them where they can sense things, they can speak their minds, they can feel trusted. Like that's what I love like about therapy. The therapist creates and holds that felt safety. They hold that space for you to process difficult things. We as parents, the more we can learn, or as people working with children, the more we can learn about co-regulation, makes a huge difference. for our ability to help calm them down. So I'm going to show a quick video because this one's a short one that talks about co-regulation from birth to adulthood. So if I'm the adult and I'm trying to help a child co-regulate, what does that look like? What does that sound like? And how is it different across the ages? And the key three main things are building a warm, responsive relationship. We'll have some tips on how to do that. Structuring the environment. Structure creates a feeling of safety. Some of you I know are more spontaneous and all that, but those same people who are spontaneous and love oh, sure, I'll drop everything and go do that, or I love to travel. Yeah, you do. But there's certain things, even if you're spontaneous and maybe a little bit more chaotic and like, fun, you still, want to sleep in a place that is predictable and safe. So many people and so many families, we don't have structure in our home. It's chaos, but we want our child to behave like they're structured, like they have self-control, when we don't even have any external structure. I hear this all the time when parents are like, oh my gosh, my child's a nightmare at bedtime. And my first question is, what's your bedtime routine? Is there predictable things that we do every day that signal it's time to go to bed? Things that even on purpose activate the parasympathetic nervous system, dimming the lights at the same time. Things that I am not a structured person by nature. I have ADHD. But a structured environment for children and creating one for ourselves that helps with co-regulation, as well as literally coaching and teaching self-regulation skills. So let's watch this next video. Hold on. Let's see here. Oops, I went backwards. Let's see if I can get this to play. Where'd she go? I'm going. I somehow forwarded way ahead. All right, let's show this video. Okay. All right, I'm going to do a quick share. So I'm making sure I'm sharing the sound well with you guys. Give me 1 second. Here we go.
As I shared before, self-regulation develops over an extended period of time from birth through young adulthood. How the skills of self-regulation look changes at each stage of development. One constant across those ages is the essential role of caring adults in supporting self-regulation development. That support, what we call co-regulation, is comprised of three overlapping strategies: building a warm, responsive relationship, structuring the environment, and coaching self-regulation skills. By using the word overlap, I mean to emphasize that caring adults use these three strategies together to support self-regulation. Similar to how self-regulation skills may look different as we grow, the ways that caring adults enact these three components of co-regulation will look different over time. As an example, let's focus on structure the environment. When a child is in preschool, caring adults structure the environment by providing a consistent routine, creating a predictable environment, communicating clear expectations, and enacting calm, consistent consequences. As a child moves into elementary school and then through high school, caring adults gradually modify these strategies for structuring the environment to reflect the increasing freedom and responsibility of children and youth. By the time someone is a young adult, the co-regulation strategies of structuring the environment shift to being about collaborative identification and creation of supportive environments. For example, a caring adult may help a young adult to identify people and places that encourage well-being. A caring adult may also help a young adult to create routines that build self-sufficiency. As a parent, aunt, and youth group leader, I must say it's pretty cool to see how I can keep using the same three key strategies as my children, my nieces and nephews, and youth group members grow into young adults. It's been quite a relief to realize that knowing the basics helps me to flex to where they are.
And I love how she says, it changes as they grow. You can still have the same consistent strategies, build that responsive relationship, structure the environment, coach self-regulation skills, and it looks different depending on their age. And that's why that coaching self-regulation skills, when I have kids who are escalated a lot, there are so many great books and games and all that, but I literally take those cards, those nervous system cards, and I teach them that in my small groups. And then when they are starting to feel escalated, all right, where are you at? What zone do you think you're in? Which one of these cards is how you're feeling right now? Because when they can use their thinking brain to describe and become aware of what's going on in their body, as evidenced by their behavior, like what their behavior is trying to communicate to them, like they can catch themselves. So I'm always teaching kids about their brains because I think it's so important. Now, if I want to co-regulate, well, I have to be aware of myself. I can't control that child. I can only help co-regulate that child if I'm regulated. So I've got to be aware, what are my facial expressions? What's my face saying? Is my breathing slow, steady, and calm? What's my tone of voice? Is the tone and the pitch good? I had a counseling professor, we had a guest speaker, and he said, when someone's escalated, you talk soft, low, and slow. That kind of helps the speed, the tone, the softness. Number four, body language. What's my posture like? Is my body showing a feeling of safety, communicating a message of safety? And where are my hands? If my hands are like this, if my hands are pointing, where are my hands? Am I looking relaxed? I can't co-regulate if any of these things are sending a message that I'm angry, that I'm not safe. And trust me, the words mean nothing if your body language doesn't match. So we've got to become more aware. Here's a question I like to tell people to ask their kids or their students. Is there anything my body does that makes you get nervous? Is there anything that I do that makes it harder to talk to me? Or is there anything I do when you've made a mistake that makes it more difficult for you to approach me? Because we might not even be aware that we're doing those things. So you got to be aware of your own stuff first. I love AI. I literally plugged in a prompt and it like made this graphic, which is a little busy, but it has so much information on it. All right. So you've got to be aware of your nervous system state and the kid's nervous system state. So if my adult nervous system is calm, then I'm going to have the ability to respond to my child with emotional intelligence. If I am stressed out and I'm not managing my stress response, I'm not going to be able to handle them. If I also have to be aware of where's my child at in their nervous system? Are they having an emotional outburst because they're overwhelmed or whatever reason? Is it an immaturity thing? Temper tantrums are completely normal for 4-year-olds, not quite as typical for 12-year-olds. All right. And if I can have this awareness between my calm state and their state, I can create this, what they call mutual regulation, where we can both become regulated because I am aware as the adult of my regulation state. I can respond when they're in this vulnerable state. I can help them learn how to self regulate. I can offer effective support. But none of that starts off with consequences. There's a space for consequences. This starts off with being aware of where am I at in my nervous system? Where is my kid at? And how can I help bring them and maintain my own place of calm? Okay. So the more you understand that, the better. So behavior change, as much as you would like to say, my child needs to change, behavior change starts with you. So Dr. Lori Desautels says you've got to be aware of your tone of voice, posture, and facial expressions. You can soothe or unintentionally escalate a child's stress response system just by using tone of voice, posture, facial expressions. It is just the absolute starting point. I remember I got called to a classroom where teacher was done. And this child, don't get me wrong, this child misbehaved a lot. And she was just laying into him, you need to do that. I'm sick and tired of this. And, da, 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 da. And all of her frustration was definitely understandable for sure. But she was attempting him to calm down and make good choices while she was not regulated. And the child literally had his shirt pulled up like this over his face. He was trying to like block his view of her. And so I kind of came in and like, well, I have to remove him from this dysregulated adult without undermining her and making her the problem. She wasn't the problem, but she was a part of the problem. So I'm like, hey, why don't we go talk about it? And, why don't you come with me? And so he continued to walk with his shirt up over his face. And we're just talking. I'm not correcting behavior. I'm not processing. He's not in any kind of a space that he could process. We get back up to my office. It's nice and calm. And I just said, man, I noticed your shirt is up on your face. Hey, in my room, we're here to solve problems. Nobody's in trouble. We're going to talk this through. We're going to figure this out. You know, you're safe here. And the shirt came down. That behavior was a clue that his emotional nervous system state was changing. We did a couple of calm down things and he seemed calmer and calmer, started to smile a little bit. Now we're ready to talk about it. He didn't get rewarded. He didn't get like a special prize and a sticker. He just had someone help him go from this to this, smiling. Now I'm in a different part of my nervous system. I can actually talk about it. He did have consequences. So it's not like, oh, free pass, we got your brain to calm down. But he couldn't even ever stop doing those behaviors until we were able to figure some things out. So, one way you can calm down, like in the heat of the moment. There's a simple one, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you can do this for yourself or for your child. All right, tell me 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. You can list these off for yourself or the child can do it. Here's what that's doing. It's forcing their brain to focus on just this. Not what I'm mad about, not what they did to me, not why I'm upset, just all I'm finding is 5 things I can see. It like narrows the focus. It helps the sensory system calm down. Another good one is 5 finger breathing. Right? We're carrying our hands around with us. So I always teach kids sometimes having a pattern for those deep breaths, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And you trace the hand. And I have them copy my speed. So I'll slow down the speed of doing that. The sensation of being touched on the skin focuses the brain. And making yourself do those deep breaths in a pattern that can activate the parasympathetic nervous system just by starting those slow and deep breaths. These are things like simple little things that you can use in the escalation in the heat of the moment that can help calm their brain down. Right? Now, are these the only things? No, there's other things you can use. Now, this obviously is too detailed to go into every single thing. You'll get this handout, but I love on Dr. Desautels' website, she's got a whole menu of things for students and adults of things they can do to help calm their nervous system down. Place a fan in front of you and feel the moving air. Chew on ice. Get a baggie of ice on an area of the body, like your arms or something like that. Wrap up in a blanket. Drum up and down your arms and legs and increase the pressure. So she has these very nervous system specific activities that you can do that can help. Just it's a whole nervous system, sensory system thing. So these, I'm not going to go through every single one of them. You'll get these handouts. But here's what I like to do. Figure it out. Ask kids, notice what seemed to work for you. Why don't you pick 3 and we're going to try those this week. And then next week, keep what you liked and let's try a few more. They've been misbehaving for 12 years. We could probably take a few weeks to try some of these things. It's not going to change overnight, but lots of sensory things that can be helpful. And then you might have your favorites. So sharing, asking friends and family. If you guys have any of your favorites, type them in the chat section and I'll share those out with others of things that are sensory things that might be able to help you calm down. So step 1, where are we at in the nervous system? Step 2, rethink your discipline strategies. And this is where I'm going to go just a little bit over class tonight. So if that activates your nervous system, calm down, we'll be okay. Next step, rethink your discipline strategies. Like, okay, they have misbehaved. What am I going to do about it? All right. So when you think about discipline, a lot of us think punishment, grounding, spanking, whatever it is that we do. So, and we get this from the home we grew up in. Some of us have changed or some of us are just like, I don't even know what to do. This child is a mystery. We have a whole class on the YouTube channel on consequences, which I will send a link to, because we've got to think about what do we do. And we've got to remember about discipline. We forget that to discipline actually means to teach, not punish. A disciple is a student, not a recipient of behavioral consequences. Now, the consequences that we can use can also be a part of the teaching. Don't get me wrong. But I can't just tell a child to calm down if they don't know how to calm down. I can't just tell a child, you need to make better choices if I've never taught them how to make better choices, how to understand cause and effect, how to understand what's going on in their body, how to identify their triggers. All of that is instruction. That's just like me telling a kid, you need to multiply when I've never told them how to multiply. I've never taught them the steps. So discipline can have consequences, which teaches cause and effect. You cross this line, this is your consequence. But there also has to be the teaching part. That's where a lot of us miss out on. And I've added a deeper layer to my teaching to involve teaching kids about their brain. If a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach them. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. When a child doesn't know how to behave, we punish. That's a very common thing. That's why you've got to have a paradigm shift, a lens, a filter shift. Um, for some of us, we are at that place where we teach, or for a lot of us, we punish because it's what we were taught to do. So there is a whole class on consequences that you will get. This is an exercise that I did in Dr. Sorrell's one of her workshops, where we literally just kind of went and filled this out, and I'll email you this handout. What do I actually believe right now? Children misbehave because they want to, or children have a biological need to please those that they have an emotional connection with. Where do I fall between these two things? So we went and we did this survey, and I found that I was very much on the traditional side because that's what I'd been taught to do. I'm not a pushover. I was a good classroom management teacher, and I was leaving out and didn't even understand this whole neurodevelopmental, brain-based part of behavior. I didn't even know. I was only focusing on the behavior. And so that'll be for you to have a better understanding of where you're at. Where do you fall here? There's no shame. If you fall 100% traditional, guess what? At least you're being consistent and you're doing the best you can with the tools you have in your toolbox. What she has found to be effective, and more research is showing, is we need to have a neurodevelopmental thing. But that doesn't mean there's no consequences. There are. So versus a punitive versus a preventive approach. Looking at deficits and consequences, meeting students in their nervous system states. Is this about control or me empowering students and kids to recognize their own bodies and regulate these things? It's a big paradigm. This is where you have to shift. And I started this journey years ago, really 6 years ago, and I'm 57. So it takes a little time to understand that. But what if we actually saw negative behaviors as a symptom of a mental emotional challenge a child was facing? Would that change our response? It's changed mine. All right. Current perspectives, a child's in distress, they're being disruptive. I, as an adult, am going to respond with anger, punishment, and I'm going to be stressed. If we shift our perspective and a child is in distress, and I have changed my thinking about behavior to where I can recognize it for what it is. Behavior is communication. It's a state of the nervous system. I'm going to self-regulate myself, and then I can help manage that behavior with connection, validation and support, teaching coping skills, and consequences still have a place. Don't think they don't. They do. But that's not the only tool that we have in our toolbox. A child's not giving me a hard time, they're having a hard time. The root of discipline is to teach. Behavior is communication. We got to get curious. Kids do well when they can. And instead of attention seeking behavior, it's connection seeking behavior. And think about it. I mean, any connection is better than no connection, even if it's negative. So we've got to see children differently if we want to see a difference in behavior. All right. And this I love. This was from her website. Our initial reactive thought might be, this child is so irritating and entitled. When really, what if we shifted that to this child needs connection to be seen and heard? What am I missing here? I'm getting curious. It doesn't mean I like the behavior. What's the why behind this behavior? Man, they're pushing my buttons versus what's my nervous system state? Have I checked my own body state? If I'm getting triggered, I'm probably in a fight or flight part. This child is so disrespectful. Okay, that could be very true. But am I showing them the respect? A lot of times we'll yell at kids and expect them to have calm responses to us. Am I showing them respect? Are they feeling safe with me? This child never listens. They're feeling so dysregulated they can't listen. Versus this child is feeling so dysregulated they cannot listen. They might need some space, time, or something or someone other than me that feels safe and calming. That's where I have teachers call me because they're like, I know I am done. I need someone to come in and help. Um, I've even said to my own kids, I am not sure how to deal with that right now. I'm going to go take a minute to calm down. I'd like you to wait in your room. Let me go take some deep breaths so I can be nice, mommy. I mean, I've said that to my kids. This child will never learn. Hey, I'm feeling super dysregulated. I need to take care of my nervous system before we can solve any problems. This child only knows aggression versus, hey, this child is in a really high stress response. They might feel threatened or unsafe. I need to meet them where they are, keep it safe, and maybe with that calm, it can help with the aggression. Now, I does not mean I let my child hit me during that time, but instead of this being our starting thought, reactive, how can we shift to this being our starting thought? I'm curious, where are they at in their nervous system? And then I can choose the proper response. Response number one is helping them calm down. Sometimes I have to move them to a place of safety. I mean, there's even times where at school we've had to, it's very, very last resort. We might have to have someone in a hold to prevent them from hurting other people. But we're not going to keep them in that hold. Our goal is to help them calm down. So there's a lot of different steps, but the key is what's our react in place. Consequences still have a place. So there's a link to the consequences class and a whole bunch of books that go into effective consequences, not just any consequences, effective consequences. So just because they're in a fight part of their nervous system, that doesn't give them a free pass to go constantly punch people. No, there will be consequences, but there also has to be teaching. How can we prevent them getting to that place? Is it happening at a certain time of day? Have they eaten? Are they getting enough sleep? Um, if there's a pattern of behavior, what things can I put in place that could prevent that from happening? Have I taught them coping skills? Do they know how to be aware of their own bodies? Sometimes a child might need medication based on how their brain is wired. Is there trauma that needs to be addressed? And I can still use consequences. But if the only thing I'm using is consequences, you are not going to change behavior effectively. So, but there is a whole consequences class that we had. And this is, I always call it the balance scale. So many people, when they're focusing on the emotional, the why, well, like, they've been through trauma, and then we give them a free pass on everything. So many people are focused on the what, the negative behavior, that they don't have time for thinking about why they're doing this or their nervous system state. We've got to have balance, the what and the why. That helps us choose a good response. All right. So, okay. When it comes to consequences, there are some questions we should ask ourselves. Have I allowed a pause for my child to reset their nervous system? Have I helped them? Sometimes I required my children to do things I knew would reset their nervous system. One of my sons, I made him go out on the trampoline and jump for 5 minutes if we were at home. That reset his nervous system. He was deep breathing. He got all that tension out. And then we would talk. And sometimes then he would have a consequence depending on what had happened before he calmed down. All right. But he didn't want to go do anything to calm down. So I made him. Sometimes I made him take a shower. Go get in the shower. I'll talk to you in 10 minutes. Because I knew a shower would help him calm down. So my adult self check. What are my triggers? What's impacting my reaction? Why did I respond that way? Does the consequence match the misbehavior? When I'm applying the discipline and correcting behavior, am I watching my tone, my body language, my volume? I can have the best consequence, but if I'm yelling it, I've just lost it. I've not helped them calm down. What do I want to correct? What does my child want that might impact why they're misbehaving? Is this a frequent behavior? What might be causing it? Is there a pattern? Are my expectations appropriate? Do I need more preventions in place? These are all very important questions to ask ourselves when we are or before we give consequences. Did I say no consequences? I did not say that. We need to have consequences. They teach cause and effect. The consequences, without an understanding of myself, my triggers, my child's nervous system state, the patterns, is this a time of day thing? And is my child blowing up every morning because we oversleep every morning and they're not a morning person? Maybe we could go to bed earlier and wake up earlier. Maybe we could make decisions the night before instead of making every decision about what to eat and what to get dressed all in the morning when their brain can't handle it. There's so many different pieces to this puzzle. All right. And I love all of these graphics are straight from Dr. Desautels' website. Now, the final part of that piece, that co-regulation piece, is creating connections. So I need to understand their nervous state. I need to provide structures in my environment, and I need to have that healthy, safe environment. A child who's not embraced by the village will burn it down just to feel the warmth. It's an African proverb. Kids want to be seen and known. So touch points are what Dr. DeSantos calls all these little mini things that happen throughout the day, moments of connection, our facial expressions, our tone, our greetings, our validation, listening, that create an environment where kids know that they can feel safe. When I've got a really challenging kid at school, I find them. When I see them in the hallway, we've got our special thing. I've got one kid last year who was an absolute nightmare. Man, we've connected over OU, and I joke, I'm like, oh, I'm glad you don't have your OU on today. Oh, good, you're hiding your OU. And it's like our little thing. I see him, and I'm like, oh, how did you know? Oh, there's my guy. You give the best hugs. When just every single time I pass him in the hallway, it's something positive. Because then when he's misbehaving, he knows Miss Alvarez is safe. He knows I like him even when he's naughty. And he's more likely to respond to helping me calm him down. And if he's getting a consequence, he's more likely to be able to receive that and take ownership of his behavior because I'm investing in him. You've got a really needy kid, I'm going to go out of my way to build those connections. And there's a really good video I'll send you about the importance of being known, like what happens in the brain. And remember, if my kid doesn't have their physiological needs met, like food, shelter, feelings of safety and security, love and belonging, they've got to have this bottom stuff managed before they'll ever get up here to what we want, which is morality, creativity, acceptance, purpose, meaning, like meeting your full potential. I'm not going to get this if I haven't created safety and security, if I haven't met basic physiological needs, or they don't feel loved and belonging. You cannot skip these steps on the pyramid, period. You can't. You can't consequence your way to self-actualization. But consequences actually can provide a structure in an environment. We don't go outside these lines. So, all of this stuff works together and keep it simple. You could do something as simple as one thing I like about you is, and every single day tell them. I had one mom every day before she started her car, anyone in the car, one thing I like about you is she was making micro touch points all the time with a routine. Um, and we even had a class, the 5 love languages of children. I included the link to that really goes into detail about how to show your child positive attention in a way that means something to them. Okay. Plus, I've got a whole link to, an article, 10 habits for building connection, anything we can give you to help you build connection. You might even make a calm down bucket with your kids and have a family calm down bucket. That would be teaching regulation skills and a fun activity together. So, all of these things, of course, I never have enough time. I need more time. Um, uh, I will include and send to you, but I want you to really stop and think, okay, how am I responding to behavior? What nervous state am I in? What nervous state is my child or the children I'm working with consistently in? What are some things that could shift? So this was more of I kind of dumped the outline on you. I really encourage you, read the book, Connections Over Compliance. But when you get the email, take some time to go back through the presentation. Click on the links. How would I use this? You cannot change overnight. I mean, you're a human being. It takes time to build our own new neural superhighway in our own brains. But if you can see the child differently, you will see a different child. Behaviors communication. Misbehavior is not fun, but man, I've just been blown away at how much more effective I am as an educator and a counselor when I've been able to apply these principles. And the biggest place that it helps is the prevention part, where it can prevent the behavior from ever happening, if I have this awareness. So again, I went over, Aaron. Sorry, you can't hear me because you're in Zoom. But hopefully this is a start, and everything will be emailed to you and extra links, whatever we can do. But I hope this starts that journey, that thinking, that perspective shift for you. All right,
No,
Aaron, sorry, I went longer than normal. I'm sorry,
don't
but I'm not
ever
sorry.
apologize. I always like to say that when I look at a presenter, and Nancy knows what I'm going to say, and everybody is still online, and you even went over, that says a lot. So that means your information was good. And I know everybody on the call can agree that the amount of information that you give us and I love that you can walk away with these tools. Yes, Nancy said it will be available on our YouTube channel. It does take a while just to get all the edits and all of that stuff. We never really have any edits, but we only have one staff that takes them from the Zoom and makes them into the YouTube and all that stuff. So be patient with us on that part. But as soon as, what's the YouTube channel? I'll send you the link, but if you just Google Oklahoma Family Network YouTube, it'll pop up. So Oklahoma Family Network YouTube, and there's so many other presentations that Lauren has done for us on there as well. And then someone else in the chat did ask if this would be offered again. And I would be said that you have it on the YouTube, but Lauren does this for agencies and has a set rate. And so that's something that we can, if you want to have her, Lauren, I'm kind of speaking for you, but if you're interested in having Lauren speak for you, we have a contract with her. And so I can connect you guys, or you can reach out to Lauren. And I will just say that after her presentations, I've had so many people say, we want her, we want her. And obviously, we're appreciative of her time. And I will say she's very affordable. So we appreciate that.
And I'll tap onto that too, since I also teach classes for Family and Children Services. There's been multiple occasions where they have access to grants that they can coordinate with schools, and me teach a class through Zoom or something for a school. And the
Yes,
other thing too is you have my permission to reuse my presentation however you want, well, obviously within reason, but that's why I share the whole presentation, because it's not me hoarding it. I want you to turn around and I want to teach you to fish and then you go feed. That's my goal always, is if you heard this and you can take it and run with it because you got the connections with people at your school. But also just reach out to Erin. She's a great point of contact because she'll forward any emails to me that you might have about stuff like that, and I'll see what I can figure out.
hey, she's even been the keynote speaker at one of the national conferences. So I'm telling you that she's done well. So thank you, Lauren. Well, thank you guys. We'll send up a follow-up email with our upcoming presentations, the evaluation link, that YouTube link, podcasts, our website, but oklahomafamilynetwork.org. You can check in the meantime. And thank you for your time. And like always, thank you, Lauren. And I hope everyone has a great rest of the night.